G'day, I'm Paul. What an exciting day. I can finally talk to you about the Ford Ranger Raptor and how it drives instead of continuously telling you I can't say anything. Now, today's going to be interesting because it's all about a drive I did with Ford, a development drive ages ago now. So we've finally been allowed to talk about it, show you some of the footage and run you through our drive experience in pre-production versions of the Ranger Raptor. And that's probably important to keep in mind here. This is a very early event in very pre-production cars. And when we do finally get behind the wheel of a proper Ranger Raptor, that is when we're going to have a chance to put it through its paces. Now, update on my Ranger Raptor as well. So it is due to arrive mid to late September. There's been shipping delays that are affecting a lot of Ranger Raptor customers at the moment. So I am in that batch, unfortunately. So I'll give you more details on that when we do finally have that information. Now, if you haven't done so already, please make sure you subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon, especially if you do want more information on Ranger, Ranger Raptor, and Everest, because we're going to be publishing a whole lot more videos in the future on those. But let's get started. Now, where were we and what exactly is going on here? So we were in a place called the Loveday 4x4 Recreational Centre, and it is near Renmark in South Australia. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere. You take a charter plane to get there or a long drive from Adelaide if you want. And Loveday is especially important for Ford because it's where they do a lot of endurance testing for Ranger Raptor. They've done it here for the new generation, but it was also the site where they developed the previous generation of Ranger Raptor. In addition to Loveday, they also use the Alice Springs Buggy Club. And that has tracks that vary in size between 10 and 40 kilometers long, where Ford will drive Ranger Raptor at race pace for limit handling testing. It is just amazing stuff. Now, Ford actually brought over a number of global execs from Ford in the States to basically validate and sign these cars off and approve them for production. Keep in mind that Ranger Raptor will be sold in hundreds of markets globally, including the States. And as part of that benchmarking, they actually had an F-150 Raptor there as well. And the entire purpose of that was to make sure that Ranger Raptor meets the Ford performance DNA, which is what they call it. Now, we had a chance to do a number of things here, but I'll start off with probably the two most exciting. We had the chance to do some back-to-back comparisons between the current generation Ranger Raptor and the new Ranger Raptor. And it actually kind of blew me away because we started in the diesel Ranger Raptor, and while it sort of lacks that punch and it's a little bit sort of slow at times, the suspension is very capable, as is the chassis, and this terrain that we drove it on was just punishing. And if you did too many laps here, you would absolutely destroy cars, and this is exactly why Ford uses this facility to test. Then we moved from previous generation Ranger Raptor to the next generation, and it genuinely blew me away. Just the way that this accelerates out of corners. The ride is, I'm not going to say it's the same, but it is very similar in vein to the previous gen Ranger Raptor. So it's very smooth, it's very soft, and it handles things like bumps, corrugations, stony sections of road very nicely. But where it really improves is the acceleration. When you punch the throttle out of a corner, it just pins you back in the seat. And on gravel, it's like you're driving on drag radials on a prepped drag race surface. It just hooks up so well that you can just have fun with it and just stay in the throttle. We had the chance to do jumps. We hit one jump at 130 k's an hour, sent this thing in the air, and it landed so smoothly that I thought, you know, this thing just cannot be faulted. But it then got even crazier. So Ford, as part of their development process at Loveday and the Alice Springs Buggy Club, does what they call limit handling driving at race pace. Now, limit handling is where you are driving the car at its absolute limits, and they're driving it at race pace because what they want to do is set a bunch of conditions here that say, if a customer was to do this and drive as hard as they possibly can, will the car survive this treatment? And to put some of these numbers into context, the track at Loveday was about 7 kilometers long. The track at the Alice Springs Buggy Club varies between 10 and 40 kilometers long, depending on the configuration they run. Both of these test cars, which basically were stripped out internally, had a roll cage added, seats, and also a race harness, they had 16,000 Ks on them. So the estimate here is that they've done about 800 laps of Loveday and Alice Springs Buggy Club at race pace in these two cars. Their whole life has all been about just torture. And I've got to say, the experience was something else. We got strapped in and went around the track with two of Ford's development drivers. They're called Tier 4 drivers, so they're allowed to drive, I guess, however the hell they want, basically. And it was an absolute experience that blew me away.
T4 to command, we're going to proceed. Good, Paul?
Yep.
Awesome. So we're going to turn right and we're going to get a series of whoops.
Oh man, this is ridiculous.
It's Trey's production car.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're enjoying yourself.
Yeah, fucking nice.
Awesome. We aim to please.
Oh man, this track is unreal.
It's pretty cool, isn't it? We've got one more.
That was so much fun. Thank you. As you could tell by my reaction, I had an absolutely amazing time. And you can't see because they didn't set up a GoPro out the front window for some reason, but you can see with the pace that we were traveling at that these cars are absolutely copping a hammering, and this is what they're engineered and designed to do. So I think that will give you a point of reference when you are driving a Ranger Raptor. If you are driving in and around the city, it is literally 1,000th of what this is actually capable of. So I'm very excited to get my car and probably not drive like these guys were, but know that it is capable of doing, you know, an endurance bush race should I feel the need to actually do that. Now, what about more sedate driving? Well, this is where we had the chance to get behind the wheel, do a bit more off-road driving, slower driving that tested some of the four-wheel drive systems. And I also had the chance to test anti-lag and give you a bit of an explainer of how that works. So let's have a look at that. Now, if you haven't driven a Raptor before, one of the things you can kind of do is just like send it most of the time. And you notice that in and around the city, like speed humps just don't exist. And out here where you've got a lot of these ruts and just continuous undulations, it really just rides over them beautifully, and that is all due to that suspension, right? And the damping work that the guys have done here means that you don't really need to be as ginger as you would in just a standard dual cab ute. When you're working with things like leaf springs and just a standard damper setup, it really is built more for payload, and that is why you'll find with this, it has a reduced payload, but the whole concept is that you're able to drive faster off-road knowing that you're not going to damage anything. And yes, it does come at the cost of payload, but it means that you are comfortable when you're attacking this sort of stuff. I did notice as well, compared to the older Ranger, steering feels a lot quicker, and it just feels, I don't know, it feels bigger from behind the wheel here, even though dimensionally it isn't that much bigger than the old car, but it does feel confidence inspiring when you are just driving through this type of terrain where you would probably be thrown around a whole lot more in just a standard dual cab ute. So this out of the box is just a whole lot more capable before you even do any modifications to it. Now it's worth pointing out as well, with the stability control, you've got 3 separate modes there that you can run through, where it will go all the way from slightly off to completely off. And then when it is completely off, you can basically do whatever you want to do. Right, so we've just been through the sand. That was so much fun. So sand mode is basically holding the gears for longer. I felt that the throttle was sharper as well. And then with stability control switched off, it's actually a stack of fun. You can throw it around a bit, and it is so responsive. The engine doesn't feel very laggy at all. What you find with things like the V6 diesel and the Maric, it can feel a little laggy when you jump onto it. It's sort of waiting, and then it gives you everything. This feels a whole lot more progressive, and certainly for sand driving, it just feels more confidence inspiring, knowing that you can attack the throttle and it's going to do everything you want it to do. Now, what does it sound like? So we'll give it a little stab just while we're driving here on the gravel. That's awesome. So as I'm accelerating there, I can see the rev gauge flashing as we get closer to the end of that rev band as well. So I'll switch it over to Baja mode now. I'll give it one more stab. Here we are. So this opens up the exhaust. Now when I go for it again, that's sick. That just sounds a whole lot louder as well. Sounds awesome on the outside too. So they have really nailed the brief there in terms of, I guess, upsetting your neighbours in terms of how this sounds. And I think that this is going to sound and feel a whole lot more different than the 2-litre diesel that you currently find in the Ranger Raptor. Now, one of the other cool features here is anti-lag. So I'm going to nail the throttle, come out of the throttle, and then get straight back onto it. Now, anti-lag is a system that I guess was developed in rallying, and what it does is it keeps the turbocharger spooled when you let out of the throttle. Typically with a car, when you do let out of the throttle and you're not feeding the turbocharger with those exhaust gases to keep it spinning, it will then have a moment of lag when you go back onto it. Whereas right now, when you're on the throttle, it's spooled up, you come off the throttle and back onto it again. There is no lag there. It doesn't have to pick up and start spooling again. So really cool setup, and something that you would absolutely not expect to find in a dual cab ute. So we are in rock crawl mode now. We've switched to low range, and you do that just by flicking up to neutral. It then takes care of the rest of it. It's locked the rear diff for us. And then in low range, it's obviously much slower in terms of the way that it's moving, especially with the 10-speed auto. So you will flick through a few gears as you get through it. And I love the camera here. So I can't see anything over the front of the car, but with the camera, I'm able to see when we crest and then exactly what it's like on the way down as well. So, and the thing is with the camera, it's really good quality too. The worst thing is when they fit 360 cameras to these things and they're effectively useless in terms of what you can actually see out of it. And we're about to go through some offset moguls here. So some of the off-roading that we do at Werribee with the offset moguls is pretty basic. This is quite extreme in terms of the suspension articulation that we're getting, and we're hitting the under tray as we get through some of these breakovers as well. So this is where a rear diff lock comes in handy. This also has the front diff lock too. So if you are doing more of this aggressive stuff, you're going to want to have both of those activated and ready to go so you can move through. There is like no fuss at all here from the traction control either. It's just hooking up and moving nicely. So bloody awesome.
So there you go. I hope you enjoyed that. I just want to give you a bit of background here. When we do filming at these events, it's actually really hard to capture the same content that we would typically get at a video that we do at our proving ground that our guys will shoot, simply because the shooters that Ford has employed have to get content that suits every single person that's there. And typically what will happen is there'll be 5 or 6 journalists that all have to do video content. We all end up with the same content. So you'll probably see lots of these videos on the internet that look fairly similar, which is why it looks the way that it does. When we do finally get our hands on a Ford Ranger Raptor and have a chance to properly review it, I will go into a bit more detail about how everything works. On this day, I was literally learning everything as it happens. So now I know a whole lot more, and we'll be able to give you a bit more depth when we do finally get behind the wheel. I am just blown away with how this car performs. It's a vehicle that really covers a lot of ground. So you can use it for payload, not a great deal, but you can still use it for that. You can use it for some towing. You can use it to drive like a maniac on an off-road course. It's fast in a straight line. The engine sounds awesome. It is really just a complete package here, which is why I'm so excited to finally get my car and take it for a bit of a drive. Now, let me know in the comments section below, have you bought a Ranger Raptor? What color did you go for? Are you considering buying a Ranger Raptor? Has this video made you tip over the edge and go and actually place an order? I'm keen for your feedback down there. And if there's anything in particular you want us to do when we do finally get a chance to drive one properly as a production car, let me know in the comments section as well. Now, if you did enjoy this video, please make sure you like it and you share it with your mates. Don't forget to subscribe as well, because we will be doing more of this type of stuff. But until next time, take it easy.